Yes, the American government needs to be fixed, but some background information first. Ever since I can remember, I have always recognized the corruption of the American government. I've always been embarrassed by and ashamed of the imperial behavior of our government. It talks about morals and doing the right thing, but that's all just propaganda. Their real interest is slaughtering the fattened calf, even if that means lots of soldiers and civilians will die. They want natural resources, control of uncooperative companies and countries, and wealth for American businesses, and I would suppose allies. When the corruption index came out all those years ago, I laughed as I cringed because America was ranked far higher than it deserved. Corruption, cronyism, collusion, and nepotism run rampant here. All you have to do is see how many family members of a president become advisors and employees during that presidential term to see a glaring example. When Anderson ran as the independent candidate in 1980, he was actually a Republican, but the hammy B actor Reagan had a lot of powerful backers. As with so many other independents and third party candidates, he was squashed by the reps and Dems. This is just one example of many. I used to read newsletters from the Libertarian and another party, and there were always complaints about not being allowed into political events, or being allowed but not being given any table space, not being allowed to debate the real candidates, and so on. That goes on to this day. During the 2024 elections, Jill Stein was illegally blocked from the Nevada ballot despite having jumped every shady tactic and fulfilled every requirement. Who done it? Allegedly, the Democrats. Apparently, they felt she was too much of a threat to Harris's chance of winning that state. Foolish Democrats, you should have worried about Starlink instead. The reps and Dems have worked together over many decades to make it very hard for people who are not from one of those two parties to be able to get into office. I guess they mistakenly look at themselves as good when they generally do selfish and greedy things that benefit a small number of people at the expense of everyone else who has, in general, made that same minority rich and powerful. Not willingly, mind you, but because the system has been gamed from the moment you step into preschool. Digressing momentarily about education, the basics of the current educational system were adopted hundreds of years ago in Europe, and the US took that example, removed the religion and royal divine right and other ridiculous notions that didn't match their agenda, and plunked it down into America. It was never designed to benefit the masses, but rather to provide a better educated workforce for businesses. In fact, true efforts to really make improvements to the educational system have been stopped by businesses. One of the reasons Common Core didn't get squished is because it opened the door to semi-competent and incompetent companies to suck at the teat of education, or rather, parasitize it with substandard content and instructions. There are already excellent educational systems with proven track records, but that won't make shady businesses looking to screw kids over while making money any richer. If we look at No Child Left Behind, George W. Bush's pet project, apparently because he didn't get a good enough education, we can tell. The concept is very nice, but the actual implementation sucks. In fact, it is poorly regarded by nearly all education experts. The CC does more for kids than the NCLB, but not a lot more, and actually has some useful features that teachers don't necessarily like because it gives them more to do, such as comprehensive grade reports that actually tell the parents way more than any alphabet soup grade report card will ever tell us. Still, back to the subject. An expression of cronyism is the revolving door syndrome between big businesses and their lobbies and DC. There are numerous examples of people who move from an industry into a controlling position within an administration in a system wherein a president gets help from someone in return for an important position, even if they don't qualify for it, but rather qualify for someone's agenda, like many of the people that have been appointed this time around. Once they've served their time in the government, they are typically welcomed back into the industry they left. Although some, like Dick Cheney and Donald Trump, were very reticent to let go of control of their involvement in businesses, and Musk never has. Why a revolving door, you ask? Simple. Because many of those people move back and forth repeatedly between business, lobbying, and government, and no one seems to see the massive conflict of interest when we put someone so utterly biased into a position of massive authority. Every president is rocked by scandals and problems. Most people who are older will say Nixon first, but Ford, Hoover, Kennedy, Johnson, Carter, Reagan, both Bushes, and so on have had problems, and many have had scandals. It was a scandal that Ford pardoned Nixon, not as claimed a way to pacify the country. It was a scandal when the helicopters crashed after taking off to rescue the hostages in Iran, but it wasn't Carter's fault, just like Reagan shouldn't have gotten credit for the hostages' release. You guess which one is guilty, but the CIA caused the crashes. Another great example is how Bill Clinton abused his power, not the first time or last, to have sex with women other than his wife, who either accepted or condoned it, it seems. Presidents enjoy a great deal of protection from the moment they run for president, if they're from a major party only, and it continues until they die, if they win. They also get a massive for-life salary because one president died in poverty, and gosh, we should feel sorry for them, but cutting social service programs is great! Socialism for presidents, for us, apparently. Not only do they get protection via police, the FBI, the CIA, the NSA, and the Secret Service, but Secret Service agents will never reveal the sordid and illegal things a president has done. Nice. Sign me up, and I'll throw my ethics out the window because, hey, the SCOTUS has declared that a POTUS can do anything within their duties, even if it's illegal, without fear of consequences. So a president can break every law in the books, lie about it, have all their secrets kept, and have direct control over the legislative branch of the government when Congress refuses to stop the POTUS. Sweet. I should have become a salesman after all, or a politician, or an actor. Pretty much the same thing, especially when you put them together. Yes, I am saying that you shouldn't trust candidates who are good at acting. Reagan screwed us over, and the effects of that shift haven't stopped. And now, the but. So obviously, I'm very much in favor of fixing the government. But there are several barriers to success, and here are just a few. 1. We are not a homogenous people. Really, almost every but fits in this category, but that would make this article really short, so I'm going to pretend they don't. 2. There are special interests and individuals who do not want to be constrained in any way. And I don't just mean things like the FCC, the FAA, the FTC, the CFPB, which is currently being gutted because it has helped customers get billions over its existence from financial institutions that rip people off. OSHA, the EPA, which is only as good as the leadership will let it be, the FDA, which is kind of pathetic, the USDA, which is primarily for businesses when it comes right down to them versus customers, and so on. People saying the free market or laissez-faire are such people, or rather criminals, because they want to pollute, sell immoral things, including people if the market has interest, and so on. And they do as they please without worrying about stupid things like, hell, social cohesion, financial prosperity for the masses, even though it drives the domestic economy. Fair incomes, even though incomes towards the top has skyrocketed over 2,000%, while regular people have seen little to no improvement, and sometimes wages have gone backwards. And the list just goes on. The point is that these people and groups are at odds with the needs of the country and its people, and thus are a fundamental roadblock to ever having governance that is for all of us instead of just for those with lots of money. Have you ever been able to call the president at will and get him on the phone? Me neither, but rich people can. Those people will do everything they can to ensure that their voices remain the loudest and most powerful in the formation of a new government. There is a constant barrage of misinformation, lies, and hatred being spread by both domestic traders as well as foreign nations. America does it to them too. This keeps the American people divided beyond the norm. There are issues these days that were complete non-issues until someone realized that they could carve out a piece of the power pie by harping on that non-issue until people polarized about it. Once people are polarized over the vast majority of issues, even ones that are relatively trivial, friends and even familial relations can come to an end. Not to mention bitter rivalries and wars. Information from traditional sources, for example, has been branded as false, whereas social media sites have become, more and more, the place that people in their confusion and fear have turned to for alternative facts, because they don't know where else to look. If there is an open attempt to fix the government, you can rest assured that false information will precede the start and won't stop once they've done. That's the thing about lies. Once you start lying, you can't stop. That's one thing that makes it so easy for some of us to debunk scams and liars. Number 4, the media isn't innocent of this negative viewpoint. They've spent too long engaging in yellow journalism, alternating with pandering to powerful figures who've come into power. They look for subjects that will draw the attention of their target consumers, and then they'll sensationalize it so that they draw more people in, many of whom lack the savvy to understand that they're just pawns and stooges in the eyes of the media. 5, the SCOTUS isn't trusted, and no wonder. Justices are supposed to judge a case based entirely on the Constitution and without prejudice, personal preference, religious or political sentiment, hatred, or outside influence. There is no statement that allows them to serve for life, and the only thing that gets them kicked out is when they fail to act with good behavior. The justices hold their office during good behavior. Yet, have you ever heard of a justice being removed? We have justices right now that are obviously criminal, but nothing is being done, and the Republican Party is the reason why. And there have been decisions made that, no matter the language used, demonstrate the biases and the bribery behind their decisions. The last time a justice was impeached was 1804, and no justice has ever been removed, which screams out that our Supreme Court is utterly corrupt and unaccountable, even with their new ethics rules that have not amounted to the removal of even Clarence Thomas. Number 6, Congress isn't trusted. Why should it be? The Republicans have already historically been on the side of business, so there's a long history of tit for tat or quid pro quo. Bribery, and now because of the corrupt SCOTUS, dark money from within and outside of the country floods the entire political system, but especially state and federal. Democrats, more and more now, are corrupted by money influence. Not that this wasn't a thing long before any of us were alive, with sellouts talking big but caving to the demands of their opponents. Right, Chuck Schumer? The Democrats, mostly, look like a shadow of the Republicans without being united, and that's not a compliment. No wonder that Trump, a Democrat, ran for office as a Republican. 7, every president languishes in the face of public opinion, which, due to the above, is often based on misunderstandings, lies, and manipulation. It doesn't matter what they do. Someone is going to assault their integrity, if they have any, make false statements, and utterly bamboozle the average voter. Carter lost largely because of the CIA-manufactured helicopter crash, but to be fair, he had his weaknesses. Yet, each president does things that upset some of the populace. It is utterly impossible not to. See above. Worse than that, many of the problems that don't fall squarely on the shoulders of a president are shifted to their shoulders. How bullheadedly a president runs the entire executive branch partially determines how much blame he should accept, but at the same time, if a president gives his leaders too much slack, then he's at fault for failing to course correct. Still, many of the problems blamed on the POTUS, which at least sometimes is just the easy but misleading way to say the entire administration, aren't even his fault. Some of them originate from common law, SCOTUS, while others come from Congress, and others originate from specific departments. And honestly, sometimes it's not easy to know where the problem originates. Number 8. A system of checks and balances only works as long as people pay close attention, which we have not been trained to do or taught how to do it. Those serving us, which is the role of every public servant from the bottom to the top, must choose to keep their priorities straight, protect and uphold the Constitution and the laws no matter their personal convictions. Those in positions of leadership must run their organization in accordance with the purpose of that organization rather than someone's petty whims or the dictates of someone high up who is hostile to that department. This does not happen very much, and with each day it gets worse. 9. Having leaders who are oligarchs and plutocrats is contradictory to the purpose of our government and our country. Yes, there were very self-serving people amongst the founders, like John Hancock, who was undoubtedly a narcissist and started the Boston Tea Party because the British backed off on their laws about tea, not because they didn't. He was making more money as a tea smuggler than before that. If we have these people deciding the future of our country, they're not going to put our interests or the country's interests first. They will do what they have always done, dogpile on us. These are just a few of the buts that are in the way. There are many more and wiser, smarter people than I will have to discover the way forward. Thanks for watching, and I hope you have a good day.
Thanks for watching. I need to ask for your help. On December 11th, 2024, Amazon fired me under false pretenses, and on the 17th, I had surgery for the injury that occurred at Amazon that Amazon and Sedgwick refused to take responsibility for. So it's coming out of my pocket and my insurance company's pocket. So that means I'm unemployed and I will not be getting short-term disability from Amazon or from Sedgwick. So my financial situation is a bit of a problem right now. If you would like to help me, there are some things you can do. Number one, you can like, subscribe, share, comment, and turn on notifications on my channels. Number two, if you'd like to give a one-time donation, and please don't do this if you can't afford it, you can, on the Glenn's Fast Reviews channel, do a super thanks. Number three, if you would like to help me on a monthly basis, you can become a member on Glenn's Fast Reviews, and or you can go to patreon.com/GLENNMII and become a member there. Thank you so much for your support.